Black Ram 313 at it again because you know this shit is therapeutic, man. Now, this is a continuation of the discussion or the series. The series about the nature, the very nature of reality itself. Today's topic will be entitled Free Will versus Determinism. Now, if you have not listened to the first part of this series, check out my video entitled The Philosophy of Time. So today, free will versus determinism, a discussion to provoke thought, to ponder the nature of reality itself. How do we perceive the universe? How do we perceive reality? What are the ways of seeing? Are you indeed a free-thinking moral agent? Or are you a machine acting and being acted upon through various biological impulses? Is there a third view? How does your environment shape the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, your thoughts, your beliefs? What actually is free will? What is determinism? To answer that question, let me start with free will. I'm going to read briefly from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Free will. Free will is the philosophical term of art for a particular sort of capacity of rational agents to choose a course of action from among various alternatives. Most philosophers suppose that the concept of free will is very closely connected to the concept of moral responsibility. Acting with free will on such views is just to satisfy the metaphysical requirement of being responsible for one's own actions. But the significance of free will not be exhausted by its connection to moral responsibility. Free will also appears to be a condition on the autonomy and dignity of persons. Philosophers have debated the question of free will for over 2 millennia. Just about every philosopher has something to say about it. Free will are the choices that you make your own. Is there a such thing? Determinism seems to be a little bit more complicated in its definition, because you can understand free will in the sense that you can choose to get up and not listen to this video or walk away from a particular thing, to go a particular place, to stay in a particular place. Free will. But determinism, gleaming a definition from an article from Psychology Today, and I believe the author of this article, his last name is Bustemeyer. So, Psychology Today, in defining determinism. Determinism is a belief in the inevitability. Determinism is a belief in the inevitability of causation. Everything that happens is the only possible thing that could happen. The chains and networks of causes are so powerful, inexorable, that every outcome is inevitable. We are already locked into everything else that is going to happen in the entire future of the universe. If you knew all the causal principles and had enough information about the present, you could predict the future with 100% accuracy. The universe resembles a giant machine grinding along exactly as it must inevitably continue to do so, following rigid rules, that is determinism. To a determinist, there are no counterfactuals. Nothing that didn't happen could possibly have happened. Everything that did happen was the only possible thing that could have happened at that point in time and space, given the causes. That is why determinism and free will strike most people as incompatible beliefs, even though in recent decades, a growing group of philosophers have embraced some form of compatibilism that preserves a watered down notion of free will while also embracing determinism. The essence of free will is that the person really could do more than one possible response to a given situation. To a determinist, that is wrong. Causes, including unconscious causes, are operating to bring the person inevitably to what he or she will eventually do. The appearance of multiple options is an illusion to determinist. To a determinist, all choice is illusory. The literal meaning of choice is that there are multiple options and the person selects one of them. Thus, choice requires multiple possible outcomes, which in no determinism, to the determinist, the march of causality will make one outcome inevitable. And so it is wrong to believe that anything else was possible. The chooser does not yet know which option he or she is going to choose, hence the subjective experience of choice. Thus, the subjective choosing is simply a matter of one's own ignorance that those other outcomes are not really possible at all. Now, that was a mouthful. So to use my own words and my own language about free will and determinism, free will is the thought that we all make our own individual choices based upon our own individual preferences. The ability to choose left, right, forward or backwards, up or down, to choose this over that, is all within range of the self. My thoughts. In fact, your thoughts are a constant stream filled with what you see daily. But what does your mind fill with actually? Now, in my words, determinism says that the past determines the future. Everything you see today is a direct result of the past. Enter Adam and Eve, right? But at the same time, you can make choices, and choices have consequences, positive or negative. There is a causality, and there must be reactions as well. But how much is determined by the individual agent is the question. So we live in two worlds, one that seems to be determined by the past. Yet at the same time, our actions are a result of our own thinking, or is it? See, these are the questions to ponder. How much is determined by the individual, if any at all? How much is already pre-prepared, set, planned, orchestrated? All? Parts? 50%? 20%? This is a philosophical question that plagues and boggles the mind. These are the things that I think about. In biblical terms, not directly related to determinism, but there is a subject matter, an idea, a biblical concept called predestination, in which I will not get into at this particular time, maybe in future videos. But they're closely related. Determinism, predestination, or predeterminism, and fatalism. In fact, let me read another definition that also includes fatalism and determinism. This is from the information philosopher. If I remember, I'll try to link these definitions in the description box. If not, if you want, just leave that in the comment section, or the request for the articles in the comment section, or the website, or where I'm gleaning this information from. Determinism is a philosophical idea that every event, state of affairs, including every human decision and action, is the inevitable and necessary consequence of the antecedent state of affairs. More strictly, determinism should be distinguished from predeterminism, the idea that the entire past as well as the future was determined at the origin of the universe. So there is a difference between predeterminism and determinism itself. It says, nor should determinism be confused with determination, the idea that events, including human actions, can be adequately determined by the immediate prior events, such as agents, reasons, motives, and desires, without being predetermined back to before the agent's birth or back when the origin of the universe. So we are talking about a few different things here, but they are indeed closely related. Since modern quantum physics shows that the universe is indeterministic with profound effects on microscopic processes at the atomic scale, we will find it valuable to distinguish predeterminism from adequate determinism that we have in the real world. Adequate determinism is the basis for classical physical laws that apply in macrocosms. Let me read a little bit about the concept of fatalism. And it reads, fatalism is a special form of determinism where every event in the future is fated to happen. Fatalism does not normally require that any causal laws or higher powers are involved. So you see how they're closely related. So I will be discussing very briefly almost all of these things in one. If that sounds confusing, what I mean by that is that your future, your thoughts, your ideas, and I'm going to talk about this in future videos, are these things determined by you or someone or something else? In future videos, your mind, your thought process, who you are as a person, is that determined by you, free will? Or are you being acted upon, your thoughts, your ideas, being not created by yourself and of yourself, but stemming from an outside source? Now, continuing the conversation here on determinism and free will. You can make choices, and choices have consequences, positive or negative. There is a causality, therefore there must be reactions to choices. But how much is determined by the individual agent? That's what I'm pondering. Free will versus determinism. Are you your own person? Do you control yourself? Do you belong to yourself? Are you free to think, to feel, to ponder, to guess, to wonder? Are you listening to this video as an act of free will, or are you being pulled and tugged? Was this pre-written? Are you following along the path of a play and you're just an actor being written upon the pages? Do you determine your own thoughts? Let's do a short thought experiment here before I bring this video to a close, because this video is not about making a determination. This video is not about a definitive answer to these things. These are things to think about, to ponder. Thoughts. Are they your own? So here's a quick thought experiment that I gleaned from watching a YouTube channel. I'll try to link that in the description box as well. A gentleman who had a discussion on free will and determinism as well. A thought experiment. Let's experiment and see if you indeed control your own thinking and your own actions, because we know that thoughts leads to speech and speech leads to actions. So again, let's experiment with our own free will for a moment. Try to quiet your mind. Now, you may want to do this after you listen to this video, but for the purpose of this video, try to quiet your mind down. Try to clear your mind. try to stop your thoughts? Can you stop your thoughts for 10 minutes? Can you stop your thoughts for 5 minutes? Can you stop your thoughts for even 1 minute or 30 seconds? How difficult is that? So if you can't stop your thoughts for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, are you really a free moral agent? Do you really have free will? Can you stop your thinking? It's one thing to control your arms, your legs, your limbs, eyes open and closed. But can you stop your thoughts completely and think of nothing? Is that possible? And since or if that is not possible, are your thoughts free? Are they free? What exactly are you thinking if you cannot shut off your thoughts? In thinking of thoughts, are your thoughts programmed, hardwired, nature, environmental? Are your thoughts your very own? Free will versus determinism. Are you free? Or are you bound as a slave to time, preconditions, predetermined, determined? Is your fate set? I will develop this topic and much more in the next part of this series. The series of the nature, or the series on the nature of reality itself and how it is constructed. Part 1 was the philosophy of time. What you're listening to now is free will versus determinism. In the next video, I'll be discussing, are your thoughts your own? Mind control and propaganda. Until next time, this is Black Ram 313 out.